Alright, this is already part 5 of set 1. And what is our goal? Absolutely, to top the board exam. Yeah, bring it on. Let's continue. Number 101. Values formation begins with reality entering through the external senses. These images of reality are processed through A. Education of the child through his or her environment. B. The knowing faculties of internal senses and intellect of the child. C. Careful planning for the training of the child or recognition of the weaknesses and strengths of the child. What's your answer, teacher? Yep, the answer here is option B. After passing through the external senses, they are processed through the knowing faculties of internal senses and the intellect of the child. That's why it's important that the child is guided by the parents in the processing of values. Kasi ang bata maraming tanong, di ba? Bakit ganito? Ba't ganon? Bawat bata may tanong siniskwela. Saka pa lang papasok yung kahalagahan ng careful planning for the training of the child and the education of the child through the environment. So the answer here is option B. Did you get it? Wonderful. Okay, good. Number 102. One of the fundamental characteristics of cultural values is that it is subjective. This means that cultural values are ideals which transcend time and space. Cultural values set the idea patterns of behavior. Cultural values are true and valid to all humankind. Cultural values are always changing, and the changes depend on the perception of many persons interacting. What is your answer, teacher? So, we have values that are subjective and objective. Pag sinabi nating objective, they transcend time and space. They are universal or true and valid to all humankind. Halimbawa, do not kill, do not steal. Universal yan. Pag sinabi namang subjective, dynamic ang values, nagbabago at nag-iiba-iba, depende sa tao at sa lugar o sa kultura. Halimbawa, ang paggamit ng po at opo ay importanteng indikasyon ng pagrespeto sa mga nakakatanda. Pero sa ibang parte ng Pilipinas, sa ibang parte ng lugar sa Pilipinas, hindi sila gumagamit ng po at opo. Not because they don't respect their parents or elders, but the reason is, po and opo are not used in their culture. Wala silang ganun. Ipinapakita nila ang pagrespeto nila sa ibang paraan. And that's an example of cultural values. So the answer here is, it's option D. 102 is option D. 103. For an integrated individual to have a meaningful existence, it is necessary that the body and soul work together to do good. The spiritual faculties of the human person be further developed. The material faculties of the human person be given attention. The soul or the spirit gives in to the desires of the body. What's your answer, teacher? This is interesting. We are talking about oneness or integrated individual. Di ba kapag ang isang tao ay may integridad or integrity, there is a consistency and constancy or oneness in his or her thinking or speaking and doing. Thinking, speaking, doing. So what we think and say and do are one. Consistent nga, di ba? So in option A, the working of the body and soul together as one is necessary to do good. Otherwise, kung divided sila, hindi tayo patutulugin ng ating konsensya. Gusto ng ating spirit pero mapusok ang ating katawan. Marupok. Sabi ni Jesus, the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak. Matthew 26:41. Kaya sa metaphysics, if you are a philo major or an ex-seminarian, you know this. In metaphysics, isa sa mga transcendentals ay ang concept of oneness, unity. It explains the inner relations or order in a person. we are supposed to be indivisible. Galing pa yan kay Aristotle, ha? And then later, Christianized by St. Thomas Aquinas. If there is a discord, disunity or division between the body and soul, theologically, we experience this harmony. Yung pakiramdam na palaging may bumabagabag sa iyo. Hindi ka pinapatulog ng konsensya. Kaya itong option A ay philosophically and theologically loaded. Now, in option B, yes, of course, we should further develop our spiritual faculties, but it should be done with other faculties. Hindi lang yung spiritual faculties. In option C, yes, of course, we should give attention to our material faculties, but same attention to other faculties as well, dapat. Ha? And in option D, this is the last thing that we want to happen, yung sumusuko tayo sa kagustuhan ng ating katawan. Dahil hindi lahat ng gusto ng katawan ay makakabuti sa atin. Alam mo yan, di ba? Gusto mo laging kumain ng lechon, baka ma-high-blood naman. Gusto mo palaging magmarites, sayang naman ang oras at laway mo. Gusto mo palaging manood ng porn, aba, sayang ang energy mo and time. So the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. Madalas tayong nadadapa, nahuhulog, at bumibigay. Now, the answer here is option A. The unity or oneness of body and soul is very important to have a meaningful existence. 103 is option A. 104. Moral values are understood and practiced through the formation of the intellect and will. The following statements refer to the formation of the intellect except A. Guiding the learner to make judgments based on an objective standard norms of morality. Allowing the learner to solve problems rationally. Educating the learner to seek the purpose and ultimate end of life. Motivating the learner to practice virtues or good moral habits. What's your answer, teacher? Options A, B, and C, A, B, C, are all directed to the formation of the intellect, judgments, rational solutions, seeking purpose and ultimate end are good for formation of the intellect. Option D is for the formation of the will. So the answer here is option D. Did you get it? Awesome. Good job! 105. The human person is endowed with faculties for optimum development. Which of the following is the proper consequence of this statement? A. A person's responsibility is paramount to freely seek ways to develop his or her potentials. The school and the home make or break the development of a person. There is not much one can do if he or she is not gifted with intelligence. Different people have different faculties, hence, optimum development cannot be achieved by everyone. So what's your answer, teacher? Kung tayo ay pinagkalooban ng faculties o kapangyarihang mag-isip at pumili ng mga gusto natin, well, ang natural na resulta nito ay, option A, sinasabi dito na ang ating responsibilidad ay lubos na mahalaga sa ating malayang paghahanap ng mga paraan upang mapaunlad ang ating sariling kakayanan o iba pang posibleng mapalago o malinang na kakayanan. Ibig sabihin, responsibilidad natin ang buhay natin o nakasalalay sa atin ang ating paglago at pag-unlad. Diba? Okay? Option B. Ang school at tahanan ay pwedeng humubog o humatlang sa paglago ng ating pagkatao. Yung option C, wala raw tayong magagawa kung hindi tayo pinagpala o pinagkalooban ng katalinuhan. Sa aking palagay, ay mayroon tayong magagawa. Walang taong bobo. Nasa diskarte at disposisyon ang labanan. Sa option D, bawat tao raw ay may iba't ibang faculties, kaya hindi raw natin makakamit ang pinakasukdulan ng ating paglago. Aba, well, ang totoo, pare-pareho tayo ng faculties as members of the human race. Nagkakaiba-iba lang ng paraan kung paano natin hinuhubog o ninurture ang ating faculties. So the answer here is option A. Aba, responsibilidad natin ang ating buhay. Kung paano tayong lalago at magde-develop. 105 is option A. 106. People are born good was a philosophy advanced by Jean Jacques Rousseau. Which of the following statements is most closely related to this philosophy? A. The individual as he or she grows older would never depart from what is humanly good. Babies are born good, but once people can think of their own, they think of evil ways. Evils arise from the society or environment that makes the individual become good. The human potential for goodness is not strong enough to defy the bad influences from outside. What's your answer, teacher? Hala, Rousseau. So, in option A, option A is actually not realistic. Actually, as people grow older, diba, habang lumalaki at tumatanda at nagkakaedad tayo, we tend to divert from what is humanly good. The diversion is usually triggered by internal and external motivations and by some bitter experiences in life. Diba? Nasakta ng maraming beses, ayaw nang magmahal. Nabigo ng maraming beses, diba? Ayaw nang maniwala sa kabutihan or sa Diyos. So we divert. Yung iba ay hindi na gumagawa ng mabuti. So triggered by different internal or external motivations. Depende sa mga karanasan. So we divert. So in other words, we divert from what is humanly good as we grow older. Option B talks about the beginning of everyone, wherein the social, we say the state of nature. In the original state, everyone was good. Pero, the ability to think caused us to think of evil ways. Yan ang sinasabi sa option B. Pag nagkaisip na, nakakaisip na ng mga masasamang gawain o paraan. Again, triggered by different motivations. Option C talks about the evil from the society or environment that makes the individual become good. Well, this option is contrary to what Rousseau said, that humans are basically good by nature, but we become corrupted by the complex historical events that resulted in present-day society. So it is in this society and the socialization process where humans become evil. So, kabaliktaran ito. Yung option D shows us a negative image of human weakness. On the contrary, sa kabaliktaran, di ba? History proves us that our human potential for goodness can be powerful enough, can be strong enough to defy the bad influences from outside. We have a lot of examples for this. The countless martyrs, if you are a Christian or Catholic, who witness how to defy the bad influence from outside. Mga saints, those who fought corruptions, those who chose to stand for their principles and values, even to the point of sacrificing their lives, just to defy the bad influence from outside. Madami niyan. And that's why Rousseau tells us that it is first and foremost important to develop the student's character and moral sense in order to optimize and actualize our human potential for goodness. Kung hindi strong enough ang ating human potential for goodness, ano pang silbi ng education, di ba? So, that's what we do in values education. We teach them values as part of their moral compass so that when time comes for them to choose and decide, they have the knowledge and the power to resist the urge of thinking and of doing evil ways. So, what's your answer here? If you answer B, you got it. It's the most sensible answer here. Option B, 106. Very good, teacher. 107. Which of the following concepts refers to the somatic level of human nature? The mental reaction of the human person to a given situation, the realities in the flesh of the human body, the bodily structure and the color of the skin, the stand of the person towards his or her opinion and feelings. O, anong sagot mo, teacher? Our human nature has a threefold level: somatic, behavioral, attitudinal. So pag sinabi nating somatic, it's our physical and material attributes. Diba? Kulay ng mata, kulay ng buhok, shape ng ilong, shape ng bibig, shape na size ng tenga, di ba mga ganun. Kasi material attributes, physical attributes. Pag sinabing attitudinal, it refers to our mental action to a given stimulus. Mental reaction pa lang. Behavioral naman is refers to our mode of acting. O, yung pag actions na yan. So, yung option A is attitudinal. Clearly, it's attitudinal. Option B is tricky. If you answer this, you are tricked. If you focus on the flesh, realities in the flesh of the human body, you will say it's somatic. However, pero, if you think of the realities in the flesh, so that's the focus in here, you will understand that it's not somatic, it's not behavioral, and it's not attitudinal. Rather, it is part of the principles related to our human nature. What is the reality of the flesh, for example? Well, the principle says our human body is united with the soul as the source of our vital function or life itself. So option B is the number one distractor in here. Do not be distracted. Option C is of course the somatic. And option D is attitudinal. So the answer here is option C. Again, focus. Huwag ma-distract sa mga bagay-bagay na makakasira ng iyong focus. 107 is option C. 108. What could be the moral basis for resolving the argument between one who believes that cheating is moral and another who believes otherwise? The end does not justify the means. Majority of the students are doing it anyway. It is better to cheat than to repeat. It is unfair to study very hard while others are cheating. Anong sagot mo, kapatid? Of course, the answer here is option A. Please note that in the actual board exam, there is a chance of having a repeated question. Minsan once, minsan twice, minsan thrice. Minsan nga, pang-apat. O pag lima na, swerte mo na yan. Pag tama ang sagot mo sa 5 tanong na yan, na inulit-ulit lang, ay mayroon ka ng bonus. 5 points agad. So that's normal. Don't panic. Enjoy it. Okay? Tell yourself it's normal. 109. Which is not a characteristic of human acts. It must be performed by an agent who is acting freely, that is by his or her own volition and powers. It must be performed by an agent who decides willfully to perform the act. It must be performed by an agent who follows the rule of law. It must be performed by a conscious agent who is aware of what he or she is doing. And the answer here is absolutely, it's option C. Very good. 110. Which of the following statements does not show the subjectivity of values? Different girls wear different shirt lengths. The Muslim and the Christians believe in God or Allah. The father of Bonnie wants to play basketball, but his son wants to play bowling. Teaching is the noblest profession for Christy, while mothering is for Vicky. And what's your answer, teacher? Subjectivity of values. Personal sa individual. Option A, yup, this is subjective. Option B shows universality. The belief encompasses persons and conditions. The belief in God. Option C, yup, this is subjective. Magkaiba ng hilig sa sport. Or hilig na sport. Option D, yeah, it's also subjective. The answer here is option B. 110 is B. Very good. 111. The material and spiritual nature of the human person makes him or her capable of doing the following except one, which is the exception. A. Relate with other people effectively. Think rationally and intellectually. Act freely on everything absolutely. And continue to grow maturely through life. Anong sagot mo, kapatid? So the answer here is, yeah, option C. Makikita mo agad na siya lang ang kakaiba. Options A, B, and D are sounding nicely except the option C. So option C. 111 is option C. Which of the following is not a correct description of the relationship of freedom and responsibility? One's freedom stops where other people's freedom begins. Exercise of true freedom is never without respect for others. The person's free will is actually deciding to choose the will of God. Freedom is a gift from God, therefore it has a limitless basis. So let's analyze the options and let's see the incorrect description of the relationship of freedom and responsibility. So in option A, the poet Alfred Gardiner, if you know him, wrote this in his work. The title of the work is Pebbles on the Seashore. You can search this at Google. Pebbles on the Seashore. He wrote, "A person's freedom ends where another man's freedom begins." Well, a better way to look at this would be to think that it is both our responsibility to avoid hurting others and to be concerned and aware of one another to eradicate the conflict of rights. Another way of understanding this is looking at our rights, mga karapatan natin. Example, you have the right to move anywhere or to live anywhere, but you don't have the right to just barge in someone's house or property. Diba? Madidemanda ka ng trespassing, baka mabaril pa. This is a critical issue in our society because our freedom is usually constrained by the presence of others. But still, this one makes sense. In option B, yes, it is correct. Our exercise of freedom is always with respect for others. Alisin mo lang yung double negative. Exercise of true freedom is with respect for others. Okay, it makes sense. Option C. Yup, this is also correct. Ultimately, our will is to choose the good. And the ultimate good or goodness is God Himself and His will for us. This is also correct. Hala, yung di na lang ang natitira. Option D is a fallacy. Just because freedom comes from a limitless God doesn't mean that our freedom has a limitless basis. If we will follow this principle, it will result to conflicts and imbalance in the relationship of freedom and responsibility. For example, you exercise your freedom without limit because you believe your basis is limitless. Then, there are also other people who exercise their freedom without limit. Then another person or other people. If we, for example, apply this in the freedom of expression and say anything that we want on the basis of limitless freedom, and then others do the same on the social media, what situation do you imagine? That's on the social media. So what if in the actual life, everybody's freedom is limitless? What can you imagine? Do you see a harmonious society or a chaotic society? Is there a balance between freedom and responsibility? Well, this situation brings us to the state of nature of Hobbes, disorder and chaotic. The model of this right or limitless freedom creates hell, impierno, for those upon whom the consequences fall. Diba? Yung matitiningan ang kawaawa. Kaya nga, nag-offer si Rousseau ng social contract at si John Stuart Mill ng utilitarian ethics upang magkaroon ng protection ng bawat isa. So, in there, we sacrifice a certain degree of our freedom in exchange for reciprocal protection. So, may limit yung freedom ko, may limit yung freedom mo para protected ang isa't isa. Otherwise, we're living in a lawless society. And for that reason, option D is the answer here. Because it's not a correct description of the relationship of freedom and responsibility. Did you get it, teacher? Congratulations. You made it. Okay, 112 is option D. 113. Which of the following best characterizes the nature of the human person according to Confucius? Do not be confused. A. All men are born good. Heart and mind are directly related to their concern about human fate. Human nature is not about life in the world, but about the life fulfilled in this world. The emotions and passions of the person are of great influence than that of his or her reasons. What's your answer, teacher? Actually, options A, B, and C characterize the nature of the human person according to Confucius. The option A is also similar to the ideas of Rousseau and Mencius, and even to Christian philosophy and theology. So it's not unique to Confucius. So option D. Tinatay option D. This is a part of David Hume's argument on the nature of the human person. Feelings have the power to result in action. So the reason is a slave of our passion or emotion. Kay Hume ito. yung options between B and C. So, yun na lang yung natitira. So, the best answer here is option C. Bakit? Hindi lang tayo nabubuhay sa mundong ito, kundi nagsisikap din tayo na may magawa sa buhay. So, that's the best characteristic of the human nature according to Confucius. 113 is option C. The theory which states that human behavior can be explained with reference to the two primary motives of pleasure and pain: empiricism, utilitarianism, hedonism, existentialism. And your answer should be option C. Very good. 114 is option C. 115. The historicity of the human person proved that his or her existence in the world is an existence of time. Which of the following concepts best describes this philosophy? A. Human historicity is an existence of time. Human historicity manifests development and continuity. Human historicity is prior to history and time. And human historicity is an expression of human nature. What's your answer, teacher? The answer here is option C. Very good. Na-retain na yata. So I already explained this in item number 4. So the explanation is available in there. Pakibalikan na lang if you forgot. Number 116. Which of the following statements explicates the theory of Bentham's understanding of the human nature? Nature of the human person can be adequately described without mention of social relationships. Human nature has placed mankind under the governance of sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. Human nature reveals a psychological, ontological, and also moral individualism where the individual human being is conceived as the source of values and as himself or herself the supreme value. Human nature refers to the composition of material and spiritual faculties given by the Creator. And your answer here is... Well, do you remember the explanation of Bentham on human nature? According to him, human beings are governed by two sovereign masters, pleasure and pain. And our behaviors are motivated by the need to increase pleasure and to decrease pain. So the answer here is option B. So in-explain ko yan doon sa Philosophical Foundations of Values Education. Pakitingnan na lang. Okay? 116 is option B. 117. Which of the following should be the ultimate basis for the guiding principles of values development? DepEd Values Education Program. Kohlberg's Moral Development. Moral Law or Natural Law. Scheller's Values Hierarchy. What's your answer, teacher? The answer here is option C. Natural law is recognized by all men regardless of belief, race, culture, or historical circumstances. 117 is option C. 118. What is the best interpretation of the statement? One of the fundamental characteristics of cultural and behavioral values is that it is subjective. A. Cultural values are ideals which transcend time and space. Cultural values are normative patterns of behavior. Cultural values are always changing depending on one's perception. Cultural values are guiding principles of the members of the society. And the answer here is, again, subjective values are, dynamic and always changing. So the answer here is option C. 119. Which of the following statements concurs with the objectivity of values? Religions promote values based on their own doctrine. Cultural values are based on the people's concept of good and right. Respect as a value has not changed through the years, even with the young generation. People may have different perceptions of what is good depending on their own experiences. This time, we are looking at the objectivity of values. Options A, B, and D are all subjective and cultural values, and the answer here is option C. If values are objective, they are unchanging. Okay? Next number. 120. Which of these statements describes the theory of Hobbes about human nature? Human beings are physical objects. Human beings are composed of body and soul. Human beings are moral agents. Human beings are vegetative. And your answer is... Yeah, very good. It's option A. Human beings are physical objects, sophisticated machine, and whose functions and activities can be described and explained in purely mechanistic terms. physical objects. 120 is option A. 121. The theory in moral philosophy which states that actions are judged to be right and or wrong according to their consequences. Naturalistic, existentialism, utilitarianism, humanism. What's your answer, teacher? The answer here is right, utilitarianism. Kina Bentham and Mill. 121 is option C. 122. The human person is an embodied spirit. This statement means that the human person is body and soul. The body of the person is also his or her spirit. The spirit of the person is also his or her body. The person's body and soul can never be separated. What's your answer? The answer here is, yep, option A. The human person is not just the body or not just the mind. It's the union of body and soul. And they can be separated in the process which we call death. So the answer is option A. Pag talaga namamatay na, ay nagkakahiwalay na. Okay, 122 is option A. 123. The statement which does not describe the non-material faculties of the human person is, it is eternal and has endless potential. It is the breath of life. It is the biological mechanism of the human person. It is a gift from God for the perfection of the human person. What's your answer? So options A, B, and D describe the non-material faculties of the human person. So the option C is the answer in here. 123 is option C. 124. The axiom "the end doesn't justify the means" simply explains that the worthiness of purpose does not make an evil act good. An evil act, when done in good faith, is acceptable. An evil act, when done with good intention, is debatable. The utility of means is best evaluated by its motive. Hala, what's your answer, teacher? So in option A, Tagalog tayo. Para ba to? Kahit maganda ang layunin, pero ang pamamaraan ay masama, masama pa rin. So, gusto mong magbigay ng malaking donasyon sa mahihirap na pamilya halimbawa, pero ang paraan mo ay mang-scam ng ibang tao sa GCash, aba, hindi pa rin accepted ang purpose mo na makatulong sa mahihirap. Okay? In option B, sinasabi dito na okay lang mag-scam sa GCash. Total, idodonate mo naman sa mahihirap. So, accepted siya. Okay lang yan. Yan ang sinasabi sa option B. Sabi naman sa option C, sinasabi dito na kailangan mo ng pag-isipan o pagtalunan. Debatable kasi. Kung okay lang na mang-scam sa GCash, total, idodonate mo naman sa mahihirap. So, debatable daw. So, in option D, sinasabi dito na ang pamamaraan na gagamitin mo ay kailangang suriin ayon sa motibo. Parang sinasabi dito na kung maganda ang motibo, okay lang kahit anong paraan or means ang gawin. Pero dapat, alam mo nyo, ang gagamitin na means or paraan ay suriin kung tama o mali ang means. Ang pagsusuri ay ayon sa tama o mali dapat, hindi ayon sa motibo. So, kahit ano pang motibo natin kung mali talaga ang means, hindi pa rin siya katanggap-tanggap. And for that reason, the answer here and the only acceptable answer is option A. Iniiba lang ang statement pero ang ibig niya pa rin sabihin ay the end does not justify the means pa rin. So 124 is option A. Did you get it? That's very good. 125. The following concepts describe the personhood of human beings. Which of the following is the best description? A. Personhood should not be contacted to man's humanity and individuality. Personhood of man is the seat of man's uniqueness. Personhood of man makes an individual a person. Personhood of man is based on his or her nature. What's your answer, teacher? What is personhood? Personhood is the sum total of the goals, values, rules you live by, your personality, your knowledge, your character, and your skills. So the answer here is option D. Personhood is based on our human nature. As a human being or as a member of the human race, we automatically have our dignity and rights pag pinanganak. So we can also say, our being human, that is our human nature, makes us a person with inherent dignity and right. This is crucial in the debate going on regarding the issue of abortion. Well, anyway, the answer here, 125, is option D. Good job. Did you get it, teacher? That's very good. Okay, so that brings us to the end of part 5 of set 1. Now, on your part, I want to see how many scores did you get? I want to see on the comment section, 25 over 25 ba? So if not yet, repeat the exercise, the drills, okay? I would love to see your score down there, okay? Thank you very much. I appreciate those who already commented their scores. Congratulations. Okay, so that's all, and I'll see you in the next video.